let's go ahead and talk about this week. Now, barring a major change, okay, a major change, for example, might be like 5 of you get quarantined all of a sudden. That would count, okay? Barring a major change, we're sort of done with Schoology. Schoology is sort of dead for us from now on, okay? So let me clarify what that means and what that does not mean. That means lecture questions are done. We're done with those. Participation points, they're gone. Weekly quizzes, they're gone, okay? Now, what that does not mean is I will still have stuff posted on Schoology for your benefit. So today, for example, you'll find the answer key to worksheet we're working on, the electronic copy, and the recording of today's class. But Mr. Spade, unless barring a major change, if Mr. Spade literally never goes to Schoology again this school year, it should have no impact on his grade, other than whether he studies or not. But you don't ever have to go there for my class. Does that make sense? Okay. Tomorrow we're going to be doing Michigan Stoich. That is a lab we're going to be doing tomorrow and Wednesday. Okay, tomorrow and Wednesday. It's a pretty good one. The calculations are a little robust, so come ready to play tomorrow. Absolutely need the hair ties, etc. Lab quizzes. Those are going to be a much more common thing nowadays. So, let's say tomorrow, let's say Faith and Barrick are lab partners. I have no idea if you're lab partners, but let's pretend you guys are for a second. Let's say Faith really gets the lab tomorrow, but Barrick sort of struggles at first. That's fine. Like, that happens, like, that's often the case where one lab partner isn't getting it as quickly as the other. That's very typical. And that's part of the reason why you have lab partners, where one of you is a little bit behind, the other one can, like, pick up the pieces, and you guys can still move forward. Now, if that happens in lab tomorrow, which that will certainly happen to some of you in lab tomorrow, okay, that's fine, but just know that later this week there will be a quiz over the Michigan Stoich lab, where you have to be able to do all the calculations, all the interpretation of the data, everything by yourself as a graded, handwritten quiz. Does that make sense? So if you don't get the lab right away, day of, that's fine, but you better figure out what you're doing. A lot of that might be a conversation with your lab partner before you get to that quiz. And it won't be like a pop quiz, like you'll know, like, all right, hey, just a reminder, tomorrow is the Michigan Stoich lab quiz. But that's going to be happening very often. Like after most labs, you'll have a quiz over how to do that lab. Does that make sense? Okay, answer key etiquette. You'll notice there is a bright pink piece of paper or two on your desk. That's the answer key to the worksheet we are working on today in class. Okay, you can use that as much or as little as you want. I strongly suggest you don't check any problems on the answer key that you have not thoroughly tried already. So don't check questions 1 and 2 until you've already done questions 1 and 2. So that's why I try and keep them face down when you walk in. It's not that you can't look at them. It's just I don't want you to accidentally see an answer or how to start a problem. Another thing I'd like to point out is some students will look at the answer key, they'll read through it, and they can follow along. Like, oh, okay, I got this. Being able to follow an answer key is way easier than being able to produce everything from scratch without any assistance of any kind. Okay? So just because you understand the answer key does not mean you understand what you are doing. Does that make sense? Now, I have still posted this answer key in the Monday folder, so you can still check it out on Schoology later. But you'll notice this answer key has holes punched in it. That's so you can take it home if you want. Okay? So at the end of class every day, especially since you guys are my last class of the day, 10th period, you can always just take the answer key home if you want. You don't have to ask me or anything like that. You just be like, oh, sweet, hole punch, pop open the binder, plop it in on your way out the door. Okay? So if you prefer a physical copy of the answer key instead of using one on Schoology, by all means, take it. I hole punch all answer keys from now on for that exact reason. Okay? And they'll always be on a colored piece of paper. I try not to use the same color twice in the same week, so hopefully you won't see pink again for the rest of the week. I have some students who, by the end of the year, it looks like someone threw up a bunch of scales all over their binder because they're just like colored piece of paper every like 2 pages because they take the answer key literally every day. Up to you if you want to do that, but you're more than welcome. Lastly, pause, pause, pause. Wash your paws. Never forget to wash your hands. Remind your partner if they forget or if you have any doubt. Okay, just very important. There's already a school district very close to us who has several hundred students with COVID or in quarantine, which would put us right back to blended, which would put us right back into the arms of Schoology, which is the last thing I want, okay? So watch those paws. We don't want to have that here. Make sense?
Wait, what sport is it?
I don't want to say, but they're close. I'm sure you could Google it. All right. Get out them notes. Take a look at this right here. So I want you to draw this little picture on your notes here.
Oh, the elementary school right next to it.
Draw the Grand Canyon here.
Wait, am I taking the seat?
Across the street. Oh.
Yeah, just briefly.
Is like so all
Just briefly.
So Columbus.
yeah.
Alrighty. Hey, folks, make sure you draw this for me. The Grand Canyon. Does anyone run sprints for the track team? Does anyone do sprints?
My legs are
Alright, Spade used to. Let's assume Spade is the fastest sprinter in the room. I don't know. Who knows? Okay. On your best day there, Spade. Okay, on your very best day, you're warmed up. You got a running start. Could you jump across the Grand Canyon? You definitely could not. Usain Bolt couldn't jump across the Grand Canyon, okay? Like,
I'm not a long jumper, I am. I think it's different.
I think it's different. Okay. In the Grand Canyon, here's what you have to do. This is true, by the way. I've never been, but this is actually true. If you want to go from the top over here to the other edge over here, you can pay to ride a donkey down here. You walk across the bottom, and then you can ride another donkey back up.
No, thank you.
Which, personally, that sounds less safe to me. I'd rather just walk. You know, I trust my own feet more than a donkey. But anyways, you can't just go from one end to the other, right? Does that kind of make sense? In a similar way, in chemistry, 10 grams, if you have 10 grams of one chemical, you can't just be like, oh, so that means that'll make 10 grams of the other chemical. Like, no. That's not how that works. Because chemistry, you have to count the molecules. Okay? 10 grams of NaCl is not 10 grams of KOH because all the atoms that make up KOH and NaCl, they're different atoms with different numbers of neutrons and protons, different densities, all that stuff. So you have to convert everything into moles to be able to account for the molecules switching places. Okay? So let's say you have the mass of one chemical, we'll call that A over here. So you have the mass in grams. And over here, you have the mass of some second chemical, let's say that's B. So A and B are just two different chemicals. Here's what you need to do. If you want to go from A to B, you can't just go directly there. You have to convert your mass of A to your moles of A. Then, using the mole ratio, remember, those are the coefficients in a balanced equation, you can convert the moles of A to the moles of B. Like so. And then you can convert your moles of B back into mass of B. A few things to note. That means if you have any of these four things, you can get any of the other ones. So if you have the mass of A, you can find the moles of A, the moles of B, or the mass of B. They're all interconnected. Okay? So the moment you ever get the mass or the moles of any chemical in any chemical reaction, you can get the moles or mass of anything else in that entire reaction. Does that make sense? They're always going to be related. They're always going to be related. So if I tell you you have 5 pieces of cheese, you can tell me how many sandwiches that would make, and you can also tell me how many slices of bread you need. Like, you can tell me more information. You could. You could. Now, you guys know what a crutch is? A crutch is what you use temporarily for a short period of time, or whatever you want to say, when you're a little bit weaker, let's say. This Grand Canyon thing, this is a crutch. You shouldn't need this after a couple of days, but if it sort of helps you get off the ground today, then by all means, kind of look at this picture. Does that make sense? Okay? But if you still need this in a month from now, that's kind of a problem. Just like if you got surgery last month and you still have crutches 8 years from now, that's kind of a problem. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, I would like to apologize in advance. I don't like puns, but I did accidentally bring a pun into this world. This is true. This is an accident. I swear, this was an accident. I'm very sorry. You know, brace yourselves. But my first year of teaching, I brought this up. And then one of my students was like, he's kind of like a Colin type. He's like, hey, Mr. P, don't you mean to say the Grand Canyon? The Graham Canyon?
That couldn't be one of Colin's jokes. That was way too funny to be one of Colin's jokes.
Boom, roasted. I'm sorry, I did not mean to invent a pun. I feel really bad. I'm really sorry. So if you need me, if I need to send like an apology email to your parents later about this pun, I can do that. Whatever. All right. Anyways, we're here. We're looking at Stoich geometry problems number 1. Go ahead and turn this worksheet in your packet. You're done with the notes, etc.
Is this what we're doing the rest of the day, please?
Almost everything we're doing for us today.
I'm tired.
Stoich problems number 1. Okay.
Is it legal to own a panda?
I don't know. I would imagine you need a license or something for that kind of thing. All right. Okay. So we're looking at this first problem. Now, I would like to point something out that will usually not be the case. It says, consider the following balanced equation. And you'll notice there's already coefficients. I balanced this one for you. Do not get used to that. I only did it for this one because I didn't want to focus on the balancing. I wanted to focus on the stoic. Okay? Focus on the stoicus. Focus on the stoic. Does that make sense? So, the moment you get to problem number 2, do not assume that everything's balanced. But if I say it's balanced, you can rest assured it is. Okay. So, in this problem, we are told we have 29.04 grams of aluminum chloride. That is a given fact. And in part A, I'm asking how many grams of NaOH, so grams of NaOH, would be needed to react with the AlCl3. So we're looking at 2 reactants. This would be like saying, hey, I got 10 slices of bread. How many slices of cheese do I need to go with that? Okay, a couple of reactions here. So we're going to start by finding out how many moles of aluminum chloride we have. Because again, you can't go from mass to mass. You can go from moles to moles down. So my moles of aluminum chloride, notice my labeling. I didn't just put moles, I put moles of AlCl3. What's the equation for moles? Is moles equal mass over formula weight. Okay, so the mass we were given is 29.04. And the formula weight, so again, if we're calculating the moles of AlCl3, we should use the mass of AlCl3 and the formula weight of AlCl3, right? What is the formula weight of AlCl3? $1.32, absolutely. Each chlorine is worth 35, so 35 plus 35 plus 35, plus the 27 from aluminum is $1.32. If you plug that into your calculator, you would get 0.22 moles, 0.22 moles of AlCl3. Mr. Pilcher, I get it. We got to label stuff. You don't have to be so obnoxious. Yes, I do! Because you are going to goof this up if you don't label things. It's going to happen. I've seen it a lot today. All right. So, I've got it labeled. Next thing is, I want to convert my moles of A to my moles of B, kind of going across the bottom of that Graham Canyon, whatever. Well, in this problem, I started here, and I'm going to there. So this is a 1, 2, 4, not a 4 to 1. It's a 1, 2, 4. Mr. Ford, what do I have to do to a 1 to make it a 4? Multiply it by 4, and so that's what we need to do if we want to find out how many moles of sodium hydroxide we're dealing with. 0.22 times 4 is, you got it, and the units on those are, you got it. Okay? Lastly, we want to find the mass of that NaOH. So moles of NaOH is equal to the mass of NaOH, so I'm just going to put X grams, we don't know what that is, over the formula weight of NaOH. That would be 40. A lot of people are going to be tempted to put 132 here again, because like, I already found the formula weight. Like, you found the formula weight of aluminum chloride. That was great when we were talking about moles of aluminum chloride, but now that we're talking about moles of sodium hydroxide, you need a new formula weight for sodium hydroxide. Okay? So, yes, sir?
Oh, never mind. You were probably about to say it.
The answer?
No.
Okay, yeah. Multiply both sides by 40, right? Get X by itself. 35.2 grams of sodium hydroxide. Look at the model student putting a box around his answer with labels! Not just grams. Grams of sodium hydroxide. Mr. Pilcher, what's the big deal about putting a box around it or circling it? Because on your now handwritten quizzes for the rest of the year, unless you circle or box what you want me to grade as your final answer, I won't know what your final answer is, and you will certainly lose points. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay? Yes, sir.
I have a question about, like, so before it was like, yeah, well, so you now said, like, say we get, like, the wrong answer, but we have, like, the correct word and we just made a mistake.
Right.
We'll get partial credit.
Absolutely.
If we have the right answer, but we don't have the right word.
It depends. Depends on the problem. Here, one thing I'd like to point out before I let you guys work independently. Let's say someone accidentally, instead of 132, they said 122 here. Could be a very easy mistake to make. Okay? That means all of these numbers afterward are guaranteed wrong. But if you show me your work, and I see, oh, Billy, they just mixed up their formula weight, so that's like a -1, -2, but the rest of your work is solid, you're getting all of your points except for maybe a -1 or -2 right here. Does that make sense? It is always to your advantage to show me all of your work. Should you ever make a mistake, especially a small one, you'll get most of your points back. Does that make sense?
Yes.
A nice advantage over Schoology. So what I want you guys to do now is you're going to work on the rest of this page. Please notice that we have 1A, B, C, and D. 1A was asking you about sodium hydroxide. 1B is the same start, so you're still starting with 29.04 grams of aluminum chloride. But now, instead of asking you how much sodium hydroxide you need to react with that, it's asking you, how much of this product will you make? And the question after that asks you about how much product of this, or how much of that product you'll make. So on and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay? That pink sheet is your answer key. You can do a couple, check a couple. In the meantime, I'll be coming around to check in on folks.